JO chairman for Region 8, so I was a big part of the committee that kind of came up with this theory that we're about to get ourselves into starting in January. For most of us, when we start our competitive season, I know sometimes up here you guys start a little bit earlier. But this is, I think, one of the most interesting and pivotal times that we've had in at least my career and in USA Gymnastics history, because for the first time, we're actually going to be doing a drill or a timer competitively in optional gymnastics. Okay, we would all agree level 6 and 7 is where we start doing optional gymnastics routines. This became a hot topic several years ago. It is something that I think that we would all agree that fundamentally makes a lot of sense. Okay, we do a handspring to our back. We do a handspring, pretty poorly usually in our first year of level 4. By the time we get to level 5, hopefully the kids are popping pretty good and flying and learning how to land properly. And we all realize that teaching the kids how to run fast and especially at that level of development is critical. We need to do that. Because there was an argument that maybe we should start developing Lomachenko's and Suits much earlier than level 6 and 7. I think that that's very presumptive. Meaning that's a lot to assume that all these kids that are doing level 4 are going to someday do flipping balls. Because most don't. We would all agree. Where's the biggest drop-off in gymnastics? From 7 to 8. Okay? Reason why? Ball typically. Okay? Because to be competitive, we have to do a flipping ball. We all know that. Okay? We're going to tackle this thing in 2 parts. First, we're going to just have a little bit of a discussion about it, because I think we're faced with a lot of obstacles coming up, especially this year, but moving forward with this new theory and the way that we're doing things. And then I'm going to go ahead and show some drills on how we develop our Yurchenkos for our little guys. So to try to help people with, at least to get a vision of what we're doing, at least, to try to get our 7s and 6s to be able to do these kind of things. Okay? But back to kind of the fundamental theory side of it is we all agree, I think we would all agree, that this is, by design, it's a really great idea. A lot of times, though, when we take great ideas and we put them into practice, we run into issues. And I'm going to be the big devil's advocate on this, because I honestly fundamentally love the idea. But I hope I'm wrong. I'm not sure it's going to work. Okay, and the reason why I say that is, and everybody should go to Tom Cole and Ann Hefferman's lecture with Connie Maloney on Saturday, I believe it's at 12:15. They're going to go over the deductions and all that stuff. I saw it at Region 8 Congress, scared the daylights out of me. Okay, because I saw how hard this is going to be. And Tom will make a joke that these are kids in that video that are 9s and 10s. And you look at the deductions that they're going to be handing out to these kids on those timers, and you're going to go, ooh, my level 6 can barely get over the table. These are level 9s and 10s, and they're getting 8s, 7s. Okay? Here's my fear. And again, I pray I'm wrong. We're going to go to the meets in December and go to the meets in January, and the judges, to no fault of their own, it's the deductions that they've been given, are going to be really, really tough on the Yurchenko timer and on the Suit timer, because they have a lot more moving parts, right? The Suit timer, you're going to see head out, you're going to see extensive arm bends in the front. You're going to see kids that are off axis because their head is out. And the judges are going to give very low scores. Well, then here comes Smart Coach behind, and all his kids are going to do a handspring, and they're going to get 9.2s. I know I go to meets to get my kids the highest scores they possibly can. Sure, I'm a crusader, I'm a fundamentalist. I'd love to see my kids do great timers at level 6 and level 7. I just don't think they can. Okay, so if my kids are going to get bad scores on timers, and Tam's kids are going to get good scores on handsprings, what am I doing in the next meet? Handspring. So what is this solved? Nothing. Okay, and that's where we have to be very, very careful. I will say that I hope that we're all going to be very patient with our officials this year. They are in again, I can talk about the history of our sport. I can't think of a tougher situation that they're about to be in the history of me doing this at least, to where they're going to be scrutinized because, of course, we're going to want our kids to get good scores. we're going to be thinking that they're doing pretty good timers because for level 6s and 7s, if they're doing a timer, it's a pretty good timer. If you work with kids that level. Now, if you go back and you want to look at your level 10s, you know, your Chanko timers, they're pretty aesthetically pleasing and they get off of the angle of repulsion and all this fancy stuff we'll hear about Saturday at 12. You know, our level 6s don't think about angles of repulsion. They think about survival. And I think that we laugh and we're all a lot of nodding heads because, again, I think we've all thought about this of, wow, what a great idea. Has anyone started working on this stuff already with their kids that are going to be 6s? How's it going? Yeah.
They're really excited though.
They're excited.
They think they're getting closer to being a high level athlete, especially when involved with the big events that hold them back.
I couldn't agree more, and that's good. And getting the kids excited is fine. They're going to be excited until they get their first 6-4. Here's the deal. And again, this is a little bit of philosophy stuff, but I think it's important that we talk about it as a coaching community. Okay? The problem we have is that, again, on paper, we don't really have anything that bridges the gap between compulsories and options. Handspring, 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 pike your Chanko to your eyebrows. Okay? And we all get it. It would be so nice if we could have something to help us do that. For years in our gym, we're a pretty good vaulting gym. I liked the fact that level 7 vault was a handspring because I didn't have to do it very often. And I could be in my gym training the timers for the level 8s, and our level 8s traditionally have been very successful on vault. I'm not sure if this is going to solve the problem that we have in level 8 because the problem in level 8, I'm not convinced it's a technical problem. I think it's a physical problem with the athlete themselves, and I think it's a problem that as coaches, we sometimes put our gymnasts in harm's way by making bad decisions on their behalf. Okay, that's not everybody. As judges, anybody? Okay, how many times you watch level 8 vault and you can barely stand it? Because it's scary. They're making kids flip vaults and they shouldn't be flipping a vault. Now, is that a technical problem typically or a physical problem? Physical. They're physically not capable of flipping a vault safely. Okay, I've got kids that have no technique that can flip vaults like crazy because they're physically very gifted kids. They're ballistic, dynamic. Flipping a vault is no problem, regardless of the technique that they use. And then I have these little pretty compulsory kids that have gorgeous technique. Can't flip vault. Why? Is it because I'm not teaching them the right technique? No, it's because they don't have the power under the hood, for lack of a better term. Okay? I'm not sure that doing timers and fixing technique or helping technique is going to solve it all, our physical problem. Okay? We'll see. Again, I hope I'm wrong. All right? As far as, because people ask me, well, what are you doing? What is your philosophy on this whole thing? Because obviously we have no choice now. It's here. We have to play. What we're going to try to do in our gym is in level 6, we're going to compete a handspring, a rotational handspring. So for the first time in their career, they're going to be asked to run fast, hit the board hard, and to actually rotate from their hands to their feet. What do we do in level 4 or 5? We teach them to run, hit the board hard, block, and do what? Stop. Fly and float. Don't flip, or else you'll roll out of it and take a bunch of steps. Okay? So we're teaching them the opposite of what rotation is. So in our minds, we're going to do a handspring in level 6, and then in level 7, probably 95% of our kids, and this is until the judging, and I don't mean the judges, but the judging screws it up, we're going to try to do a soup timer. Okay? But if the soup timers that we think are pretty good for that stage of their development score really low, and the teams that we're competing against are doing handsprings and they're scoring really high, we're going to be doing a handspring in level 7. And I think, unfortunately, that's what we're going to see very, very quickly. We're going to see a bunch of handsprings. So if we have a bunch of handsprings doing this stuff, what have we saw? Not a whole lot. Okay? So that's our club philosophy. I would say to everybody that as you start to go into this new era, is that everybody has kind of a club philosophy on what you're doing with this. And I would talk to you about this. Because when I mentioned the word we're going to have to be patient with the judges, it's because I think from state to state, to region, the judging is going to be very, very Who does that affect the most, you think? The parents. Okay, and then who? Us. Because they go, what happened on vault today? And your answer is going to be, I have no idea. I don't know. You know, last week it was a 9-2. Until we get ourselves consistent across the board, from border to border, I should say from coast to coast, I've been watching too much CNN. From coast to coast, until we get our acts together, all of us, you know, it's going to be very, very inconsistent, which is very hard to explain to the parents. And that puts us in a very tough position. Okay? The kids, they forget by Monday, right? Parents, it's a little bit tougher to explain. You know, why they paid $100 to get into the meet, $15 at the door. They got to buy the kid a $60 T-shirt, and they can't explain it either, and we need to judge it. Okay, so we are going to have to be very, very patient this year as far as this is concerned. I will tell you that we have a philosophy that goes beyond level 6 and 7. Most of our level 8s do SUKs. Okay, and I say most, I would say probably, if you take the last 5 years, I'll say 90% of our level 8s do a SUK. Now, that is because I feel like it's a much safer vault for that level of an athlete. It's the first time they're ever flipping off of their hands, and I want them to have the visual help that a SUK provides. Meaning that when we see Yurchenkos crash really bad because they did a really short back handspring, their hands were on the front, but they flip anyway, and then they hit the table, we've all seen it. You know, that happens because they didn't realize where they were on the table. If the kids do SUK vaults, they have that visual, they can see, and that usually helps them to balk or stop in the middle of it if they're in a bad place on the table, if that makes sense. Okay? That's our philosophy. I will tell you, though, that we parallel train. We start training Yurchenkos very early on, and then we parallel train Yurchenkos with SUKs while they're competing as level 8s. And then literally 100% of my level 9s last year, we had 12 of them, all of them did a Yurchenko. So as an 8, they do a SUK, and then we've had no problem with the carryover of getting our kids to be able to do a Yurchenko as a first-year level 9 because of the parallel training. And we talk about the old days where it's level 7, it was a handspring. We would parallel train that with the development of our SUKs. So by the time we got to level 8, we were already 2.5 years in, if that makes sense. But the problem happens also in level 8 is that people spend so much time on the handspring, and that's where this stuff is good because it's going to force everybody away from that non-rotational handspring. But we would spend so much time on the handspring trying to win, and then the summer before you get to level 8 is the first time you're ever starting to flip a ball. Well, that's why your kids are falling on their faces. They haven't had the time to develop it. So this will help with that until the judging screws it up and everybody does a handspring. Okay? And again, that's me being hopeful that I'm wrong, but I have a feeling I'm going to be right. Okay? And then, so like I said, not 90% of my 8s do SUKs, 100% of my 9s did Yurchenkos. Most of them did layouts. We had a couple of tuck pulls. And in the last 5 years, I've had 5 Eastern National Ball Champions. So us doing a SUK in level 8 hasn't hurt us one bit. Because people ask me all the time, when you do a SUK in level 8, doesn't that slow down the development of your Yurchenko? I actually think in some ways that it actually speeds up our development of the Yurchenko. Because a SUK is actually a harder vault to do until you've mastered the timer. So if you can get the kids running hard enough to do a good SUK, blocking the table hard enough to get their chest up, to flip and do a pretty ball, by the time they get to Yurchenkos and they can master that timer, the flip becomes easy. It's much easier to perform than an actual SUK. So we found a lot of benefits in doing that also. Okay? The other thing that we did this year, and I hope everybody realizes that in level 8, a tuck and a pike are both going to be 10-0 star values. Okay? And it's funny because we had a meeting out at the National Team Training Center about a year and a half ago as we were starting to develop the new compulsories. And Dan Baker, who's a great friend of mine, an incredible ball clinician on the national staff, mentioned to us that he thought it would be a really good idea if instead of force-feeding this pike to these kids so they can get those 2 10s, that we could just do a tuck for the same start value. It'll make it safer. Absolutely agree. Because where do you see the biggest crashes? The pikes. The injuries, pikes. Okay, because it's a much harder ball to land. It's a much harder ball to set the center of rotation and to flip and to do all that good stuff. So this tuck is really, really going to help that. I think it's also going to help with layout development. special kid that can get that chest up and kind of in an open position, pull their shins over their forehead. Most kids do what on pikes? Drop their chest forward, which is the opposite of what we want to do in developing a layout. Really the opposite of what we want to do developing a flipping vault at all. Okay? So I think that tuck is going to really, really be helpful also. Now, again, not to put stuff on the judges, but what's going to happen with the tucks is they're going to say that what happens in almost every vault. They tucked too early. Okay, they didn't clear their hands before they tucked. Hopefully with education, they'll be able to slow that down and watch it, because it does happen sometimes, but it doesn't happen as often as they think it happens. Okay, it's something that it's almost a figment of one's imagination, where they think that they're tucking too soon. And it's why we see tuck twisting vaults like Kazamatsu's and tuck suit fulls sometimes don't score very well, because again, the judges feel like they tuck too soon. But in fact, a lot of times they don't. So it's just something that we're going to have to watch out for down the road. Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get off of this philosophical stuff. But, one thing to talk about again is the patience, and, we realize that the future of success in regard to this vault sustaining and being able to do it is it's going to be a process. In other words, we may find out after year one that what you're going to see in Tom's lecture at 12:15 on Saturday is way too stringent, it's way too hard. That we need to back off on some of the deductions for the level 6s and 7s that are doing the timers, and to maybe promote the Suga and the Yurchenko is maybe make the deductions more severe for the handspring. Okay? This is going to be a work in progress. But if we want it to work, a good, in our minds, especially for the level or the place that they are at developmentally, a good Yurchenko timer hopefully will score as well as a good handspring. Because if it doesn't, that's when we're going to run into the problems. Okay, and it's hard because the judges are being shown what to do, that they're just going to apply the deductions that they're told to apply. We all realize that. Okay? But again, because we're asking them now with just very little training, we're basically throwing them into the fire to try to do this when we don't even know what's going on. I'm on the committee and I have no idea what's going on. How it's going to be evaluated. What it's actually going to look like when we start warming up at a meet. And we've got a stack of mats with 3 or 4 different vault settings. We've got a Yurchenko mat now. We've got a hand mat that aren't allowed when you do a super or a handspring. And we're going to have to move all these configurations to get all these kids warmed up that are doing brand new timers for the first time. It's going to be really, really interesting. So we're going to be faced with a lot of challenges. The point of this is we need to be patient with each other. We need to be patient with the officials. And hopefully, in time, we'll get it to where it actually works out really, really well. And we achieve what we're trying to achieve, which is now bridging the gap between that compulsory handspring and an optional flipping vault. Okay, that's the goal of this. We all realize that. Plus, it really is going to help us in regard to any type of potential litigation or lawsuit that you would face as a club owner, as a coach, whatever it may be. Because before, if you just did handsprings your whole life and then in your first meet your kid's doing a flipping vault and they hurt themselves, what's the attorney going to ask for? It's defending the child. Your progressions. What did you do? How did you do it? How many did you do? Blah, blah, blah. Do we all do a great job of tracking all that stuff? I know I don't. Okay? So it's just one of those things we know by feel and we know by experience that the child was ready to go. This is going to help us because now, on paper, we have a visitor. Now on paper, we've got a way to show that we've actually done our due diligence in regard to developing the kid's entry and timer and all that good stuff. So that's going to be really helpful as well. All right, we are going to go on to some of the development work as far as drills are concerned. Okay? And again, like I mentioned, I'm going to kind of show the Yurchenko stuff, just because I think that that's where our biggest challenges are going to come. I do believe that we will see some in level 7. I believe we'll see very few in level 6. Just because I've never met a level 6, at least in my gym's history, unless they were a incredibly talented tops kid or something like that could do a safe Yurchenko timer at that level of their development at the age that we want them there at. yeah, if I had 13-year-old level sixes, they could probably do it. You know, but I try to have level sixes that are, 9 years old. And 9-year-olds to be doing a Yurchenko timer is going to be a lot to ask for most of our kids.
Do you compete level 5, just out of curiosity, since you?
Do what?
Do you use level 5 at your gym?
My favorite level.
Okay.
Yeah, we competed. We
So you
competed
do,
at
you
state.
do 5 and then you do a level?
6 or 7.
Here, and 6 or 7.
Hopefully 7.
Hopefully.
6 if there are kids that are challenged by a giant or by the back
Thanks.
handspring fear thing. But yeah, we compete 5 for at least 1 year. Yeah, I love it. It's very, very hard. It's challenging, but that's actually what I love about it. Yeah. So I think that people make, and it's a whole different subject.
Whole different
but
subject,
I
sorry,
think
you
it's,
just were referencing level 6, so that's
yeah,
why.
absolutely. But it's, I think people make a mistake by skipping it, to be honest, by just scoring on it. My opinion. All right, let's go ahead and go, but this is going to be Yurchenkos again. Soups, almost all this stuff can be done with soup as well. And basically, this is the stuff that we're doing, starting with our kids when they're probably level 4s. Okay, that's when we start with the Yurchenko stuff. Okay, so this is just starting to develop the run, and you're going to see kids of all different shapes and sizes on this video. But we call these run, hurdle, runs. And we would do this even with the kids that are doing handsprings in level 4. This is just something that we do as part of their vault run complex and also as part of tumbling stuff. We're starting to get them thinking about what's coming down the road. The idea here is that we don't slow down as we hurdle and swing the arms. That hopefully we can actually accelerate out of it. We also use this quite a bit when we're doing tumbling. Really, really important. Okay, these are kind of side cartwheels. We're working on a hand placement. We're working on getting the feet together as late as possible. The later the feet come together on a round off, the more rotation it's going to have. And that's exactly what we all need, as we know. Biggest problem on Yurchenkos is what? An under-rotated back handspring. Under-rotated back handspring comes from a under-rotated round off. And do a lot of this work from power hurdles. Just feet together as late as they possibly can, creating a little bit of a curl and working backwards. Okay, then you'll start to see a little bit of a variance here in hand placements. I don't really care too much about hand placements except for that I want them narrow. And we talk about in round-offs all the time that when I say narrow, I mean this way narrow, not this way narrow. Okay? We talk about making sure that they're looking down their second arm, not their first. That keeps their head in. And when their head is in, they have a really good opportunity to stay on axis or to take it over the top. So we talk about looking down their second arm, and then we talk about kicking their heel over the top of their ponytail, the second leg. If they look down the second arm and they kick over the top of the ponytail, almost every time the round-off is going to be straight. Okay, and spending a lot of time on these lines, what's that tumble track laser beam with the lines on it? If you have your kids do round-offs off of those, meaning that just their hands go on it, they're not worried about punching it, the beam itself, but they put their hands on that beam and do round-offs off of it. It's a really good way to get kids to do straight round-offs if you're having trouble with that. Imagine that line was one of those laser beams. Really good job of showing that she's looking inside or down the second arm. That's really the key of focus here. Whoops. But little stations that you can set up using almost anything, and do this on the way back from vault in level whatever. Okay, just setting up little stations like this. That's simply your Yurchenko hand mat with a line drawn down the middle, and then just a little kind of hip pillow type of thing that we use a lot just to set up little stations like this. So that's kind of simulating the board. It's very similar size. They're able to see where their hands are going in relationship to the line, and then just starting to do round-offs onto something, which is really the first time in their lives, right? Because they've only done round-offs on the floor at this point. All right, just a little more help for kids that don't want to go straight. Let's kind of give them no choice. And it's amazing how well this actually works. And we start out a little bit wider, and and then you start just creeping it in a little bit, and it really does amazing things. When you give the kids visual cues like that, it really, really helps for them to understand. You're noticing too, the second leg, how these guys are doing a pretty good job, and that was bad. You guys see it? She didn't go over the top of her ponytail with the second leg, therefore it went off axis. And this is a lot better. Again, focused here, I focused on looking down the second arm, which the little one's doing pretty well of doing that at this point. Pretty good. Okay, the next thing we do there, and again, we do this quite a bit, and you see my setup is we have 2 runways, and I'll set a lot of this stuff up in between those 2 runways on the brake carpet. So they'll hit a few stations on the way back to whatever line that they're in. But the first time we're introducing the board, and again, we're just doing these like kind of cartwheels or round-offs where the feet come together really, really late, and just really working on getting over the top and making sure that second foot is coming in much later than the first. And as they start to get a little bit stronger with it, they'll start kind of going up on the table, and all that's really, really good stuff. We have an abbreviated run at first is how we do it. We've all seen this. This is a little bit more coach intensive. And we're all in the era of the spotting stuff and what to do and what not to do and all that good stuff. This is definitely one where a mistake could be made. So be careful. I'm doing a lecture on that later, by the way. Can't wait. Just a really good drill. And this is one we also use as just kind of discovery. And when I say discovery, it's kind of finding kids, can they actually punch the board and get up off of the board at the level that they are at. If you have kids that are doing round-off punches onto a board, and they can't get off the board with any kind of power, you think that's a candidate for your champion for level 6. Probably not.